Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Protest and Promise. My name is Lisa Salazar, and I'm the General Manager of the Youth Development Department. Every month we engage with members of the Olivia E. Mitchell Youth Council, which is represented by all 15 council districts on very important topics and themes relative to youth interests. It is my pleasure to announce that Youth Council members are here with us today for this very special segment celebrating Women's History Month, and joined by Councilwoman Heather Hutt, representing the 10th District. But first, before we dive in, allow me to introduce members of our Youth Council. Joining us virtually, we have, and I will call on you and maybe just introduce yourselves. Let's start with Charlie.
Hello, I'm Charlie Saya, and I represent CD 13 on the Olivia E. Mitchell Youth Council.
All right, thanks for joining us, Charlie. Sasha.
Hey everyone, my name is Sasha. I'm the CD5 representative on the Olivia E. Mitchell Youth Council. I'm a senior in college and I'm excited to be here.
All right, and I should mention, I know Charlie is dialing in today from his school in the office there. I know Sasha, you mentioned that you're on spring break. Congratulations, you are lucky. And I know Lalitha just ran in from class. Lalitha, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. Hello, my name is Lalitha Diaram, and I represent Council District 3. I'm currently a senior in high school along with Charlie.
Right on. And last but not least, Monica.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. I hope everyone is staying warm after the rain this morning. My name is Monica Rodriguez, and I am the Youth Council representative from City District 8.
All right. Are you on spring break yet or not yet?
I actually had my spring break 2 weeks ago, so no more breaks for me.
That's early. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, back at hitting the books, right? All right. Well, I'm so glad that all four of you are here with us today, and here to welcome Councilwoman Heather Hutt. Our focus this month is on gender equity and celebrating Women's History Month. And we would love to just learn more about you, your career pathway, what brought you to this leadership space, and what Women's History Month means to you.
Thank you, Lisa. First, I want to say thank you for having me. Thank you, Youth Council, for having me. It's really an honor to be here with young minds that are investing their time and energy into the city of Los Angeles, things that make it better, so I really appreciate it. And then to have this kind of dialogue so you can get to know me, get to know what's happening in CD10, and things that we can collaborate on to make our city better. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, we're just so incredibly lucky to have you here. You're the first female to represent Council District 10 in the history of Los Angeles. That just seems crazy. It's 2023.
Right. That's exactly.
And you're the first woman, and not only that, you're the first black woman to represent the council. So congratulations.
Thank you for that. It is pretty interesting to know how progressive Los Angeles is and has always known to be, and then you're still getting first. It's just very interesting.
Seems a little crazy.
Right. But we're here now.
Yes.
And so I got to make a big deal out of it, right? So that I'm not the last, right?
Absolutely.
So that other women, especially young women, say, hey, she's there. She busted a ceiling. I got some shards on me. I'm going to clean them up and keep it pushing. So
the first,
I can
but
get
definitely not the last.
Not the last. I can get into those leadership roles. And I think that is probably one of the more important things, is so that young women and young people, period, can say, hey, I'm a person of color, I could be that. I'm a woman, I can be that. I'm a identifying woman, I could be that. So those things are really important to me.
Even today, I think we all still find ourselves entering rooms where we may be the only female or we may be the only person of color. And so, you know, I mean, we just have to continue to build sort of a pipeline, I think, of young people, young leaders. So I think that's why we're just so grateful to have you here to kind of hear your story and how
Thank
you
you.
got here.
You know, I just want to say something about that. When you're young people and you're stepping into those rooms, because I saw heads shaking, remember you're where you're supposed to be. You are 100% equipped, and you're going to do the right thing when you're there. So you remember that you are exactly where you're supposed to be.
Sometimes we think that we want to study and be in one industry, and as we kind of get involved with it, we meet people, we become aware of other types of work that are related to that, and it kind of takes us, it's never like, it doesn't have to be a straight path. It can be a very windy path with like different stops along the way. And I mean, wow, I mean, you worked with the Vice President of the United States, and now you're the councilwoman for CD10. So thank you for that. Yes, that is a great example of how
And she, you know, when
you
she
just follow
found
your
out,
dreams and you don't know where it'll take you.
right. And when the vice president found out, she was like, she opened her arms and she's like, "I'm so proud of you." So, you know, that's super cool, right?
That's awesome.
So you don't know where your work is going to take you, just like you said, or how you're going to get there. Just do your best. Just do your absolute best. And the outcomes can be amazing.
Yep.
And that's what I'm here to share.
All right. Well, I know our youth council members are chomping at the bit to get into a conversation with you.
Sure.
And they've prepared some questions.
Sure.
So I'll open it up to our youth council members. Charlie, you put your hand up first, so you have the floor, sir.
I just wanted to talk about like how you said going down a certain pathway. Like when I was little, I wanted to be a doctor, and then like coming up with like working with my mom, and she does a lot of the DACA work that you do, so I really appreciate that work. She would work with like DACA students or with immigration rights and teaching immigration classes on how to pass your citizenship. And we're at a very critical time in not only our country but in our city. In Los Angeles, being led by a county of board supervisors that is all women now. And our city council is making history as well with having a strong representation of women. You have you yourself, we have member Nithya Raman, we have council member Ulysses, and many more, and obviously Monica Rodriguez. And how do you see taking this moment to advance gender equity in our city?
Oh, that's a good question. My colleagues and myself are leading with compassion. We're working together lockstep, even with the mayor, who is a woman as well, right? Our first woman of color, first black woman. And we're leading with compassion and we're leading with hope in a different kind of direction. When women are working for equity, we're not just working for ourselves, right? We want equity across the board. So we want our working families to be seen in an equitable position. We want our students to have some education that has a lot of gravity, so it doesn't just stop in the 12th grade, that you could carry your knowledge on. I think that bringing those kind of mindsets to the table of equity and equality, it's going to make a difference. You'll start to see a difference in the city because we're working together to bring those things.
That's a really good question, Charlie. I'm curious. I know you're a part of student body on your campus. What is sort of the gender makeup of the student council? Is it balanced? Are there more males than females? What does that look like?
There are a lot more females than males in our ASB class. But there are, I would say it's about even when it comes to the officers themselves. And in my club, I try to have like a diverse group of people. We always, and for our officer roles, we count them as officer roles, but we always delegate responsibilities to anyone who's willing to take them. I would say we have a good mix of like equal, maybe sometimes, I think there's actually a lot more girls or women in our club than males themselves, you know, like, and they do a lot more work than my friends. So
okay,
I appreciate them a lot.
Well, gender equity is important both ways. I mean, it's about equity, not being lopsided either way. But I'm really happy to hear that there is, it seems like, strong participation of young women that are on ASB at your school. So thank you for sharing that. Who has the next question? We'll go with Monica.
Hi, good afternoon. I just want to reiterate congratulations on being the first woman in history and the first Black woman to be appointed for your district. That's so incredible. I'm so happy that you're pioneering for the rest of us. It means so much to a lot of young women throughout Los Angeles. I was looking at your platform and some of the work that you've done. And one of my biggest passions is also advancing equity in healthcare specifically. I am pre-med, and you see a lot of the disparities and the inequities. And I wholeheartedly believe that as a future healthcare professional, advocacy is such a huge role in our jobs, and it continues even after the patient leaves our examination room. And I saw that you've advocated for women by bringing together healthcare professionals to discuss implicit bias in healthcare, especially for women and women of color. So my question to you is, what sparked your drive for this issue, and how will you continue to advocate for women as a councilwoman?
That's a data-driven passion. When you look at the data and you really see where the disparities are, it didn't even matter on education. Education as a PhD Black woman having a baby. Or let's just take Serena Williams, right? Serena Williams, who's a multimillionaire, was having problems during her pregnancy, and they ignored it. They said, she's a tough, strong athlete. She's a Black woman. Basically take 2 aspirin and call me in the morning. The women of color are ignored. We're seen in general as stronger so they can get through it without medical attention. She almost lost her life behind that. And we have many other examples of women of color losing their lives or mortality for the infant. Infant mortality rates are really high for women of color. So we have to protect ourselves. My recommendation to anybody who has 5 minutes is to become a doula, to help other women advocate for themselves in that space, either in pre or post. Because having a baby, like I had 3, right? So that's the closest you get to God, really, because you don't know what's about to happen. And you go to the doctor and you have an expectation that they're going to answer some questions and carefully take your life along this pathway, and they ignore you. And then where do you go? If you're a foster kid, you can't say your mom's going to come talk to the doctor for you. Like, who's going to be there for you? So it's important to have advocates out there. I believe that we have to push legislation. I worked on the Momnibus bill with Senator Harris, and they did put some legislation for implicit bias in there, because that's really what it's all about, them thinking people are stronger than they are and not really giving them the medical care and attention that they need. So if we can't get law to do it, then we just have to advocate ourselves. It's just like if you can't eat and you don't have enough money, you ask your neighbor, can I borrow a cup of sugar? We just have to help each other until we get more systematic changes in place.
Great question.
Ooh, that's a big passion of mine. Are you kidding?
Great question.
If you don't mind me, can I ask a quick follow-up? Sorry.
Of course.
Yeah, so as youth leaders and as with our position on the Youth Council, is there anything that we can do to help you as a councilwoman, or how else can we get involved?
I would be happy to reach out, and we have some hunger issues in our district and in Los Angeles. I'm going to be working on trying to work with changing what that looks like. By really passing out food, I probably am going to need help with that, so I'll be happy to reach out to the Youth Council.
That'd be great.
So we could have volunteers just in that little thing, just to solve some of our hunger problems.
Our Youth Council members are always looking for ways to, participate in community service activities, and if it's helping out, meeting the hunger crisis and the food instability crisis, I think that's absolutely something we'd be interested in. I have a follow-up for you, Monica. So you are pre-med, your interest is in healthcare, but like we learned from the councilwoman whose field of study was law, and it led her to a leadership position, do you see yourself as an elected official? And I feel very comfortable in asking you this because I consider you a leader. Have you thought about that?
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I have considered it a lot because, you see all of the issues that are currently affecting a lot of Americans, not just Angelenos, especially in regards to like access to healthcare and access to certain procedures. And because of that, I'm hoping that with my background in medicine and that experience, really gives me the credibility to advocate for my community members. And I'm actually minoring in cultural competence in medicine because I was really upset to find out that a lot of medical schools do not require any curriculum involving cultural competence. And I feel that because the US is so diverse, that should be a required element. And I'm hoping that I can use my position as like an elected leader to work with a lot of medical systems or within these medical schools to implement that or to make it a requirement within some capacity for healthcare professionals that are that are hired within city or county positions.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Bringing that subject matter expertise to an elected position on such a huge issue. Well, I'll tell you, I'm here to support you, and I think the Councilwoman's here to support you as well. So thank you for that question and the follow-up. Let's go to Sasha.
Sure. Thank you so much for taking the time to have this important discussion with us, Councilwoman. You mentioned you work with Senator Kamala Harris. As an Indian American, I completely agree that it's important to see people who look like you, who have your same background in positions of power. So that was really
Vice President.
Yes, Vice President now. It was great news when I heard that in 2020. And as someone who hopes to go to law school and actually follow the same law into politics kind of path, that your journey is inspiring to me in that sense too. Because I'll be going to law school next semester, but I also hope to transition to lawmaking and legislation and advocacy. So thank you so much for that as well. So my question is, you've spent a lot of time in both statewide and citywide offices. And in both of those areas, we've seen enormous strides made towards achieving gender equity. We've seen many women being represented on the city council here. We have the abortion restriction, the abortion amendment put into the California Constitution now that protects the rights to abortions in the state. But at the same time, on the national level, we're seeing a backsliding in gender equity, particularly around the issue of abortion, but many other issues involving women's health and women's rights. So what would you recommend we as leaders in the state and the city do to influence that national discussion or to export those values of gender equity to the national stage?
Wow, that's a very big question. Mm-hmm. I'm depending on your generation. I'm depending on your generation to have the big conversations through your social media, through your connectors, so that you can talk to other folks so that they can open their minds and their eyes. Because what we're seeing are silos that are making laws that don't apply to life today. And it will take your generation to make that difference, to talk to folks, to make sure they vote, and that they vote for people that understand about protections and understand a woman's right to choose. But the old guys, they're not gonna be thinking about that. Those old men need to keep their hands off my body and stop determining what can happen to me or you or you. And we know that soon they won't be there. So we have to equip our next generation so that they'll be able to change the laws, so they'll be able to open their minds. Well, we have to engage them, and many youth are not as engaged as you are. And we have to get them to vote, and that's your job. That's my job, so that they understand that that's where laws get changed, and that's where our society gets fixed. Right now, the things that they're doing about equity, about health care, about education, they're ridiculous. So it's going to take your generation to overturn that. And so that's where you have to reach out to your age group, your generation, and have it stopped. Make them vote.
That's really great. So education and awareness, and, in this day and age, we have so much, we have such a great reach through social media.
That's right.
And even through like this show, Protest and Promise, it's on YouTube. Folks can view it from anywhere in the world. So education and awareness. Sasha, your question was centered on reproductive health. Is this an area that you think you will focus on in your law studies, or do you have a different sort of emphasis?
For my legal studies, I was really hoping to tackle educational equity. That's something that has been really near and dear to my heart. I've been tutoring with Teach for America for quite some time, where I see those issues of, I'm tutoring students whose sometimes they can't even attend the sessions because there's blackouts in their schools in some of the other states that they're in. As a member of my student government, I'm working with projects like Project Rebound, which hopes to get formerly incarcerated students to get those degrees to break the cycle, the prison cycle. So I'm seeing that there's many issues outside of the classroom that can really hurt a student's performance when they're inside the classroom. And that's something that I really want to tackle. And I know that law would be a great tool or a method to really reduce those things like poverty, like, as you mentioned, Councilmember, hunger, a lot of those things that can really affect students. So it doesn't matter how smart you are if you're completing homework in your car or if you're starving during lessons. So that has always been my greatest passion.
That's beautiful.
You're depending on the future. I'm confident in the future. I mean,
That's
after listening to Sasha and our group here. Thank you for sharing that, Sasha. Lalitha, so let me tell you, I think she might be the next host of Protest and Promise.
Okay.
Because she is amazing. But Lalitha, I know you have a question for the Councilwoman. You want to go ahead and throw that out?
Yeah, of course. Thank you again for taking the time to speak with us today. So I want to circle back to something that Monica was talking about earlier about being a woman in STEM, and she's going into the medical field. I'm going more into engineering, more specifically aerospace engineering. And I know that the stats right now for women in the STEM field don't look too good at the moment. It has been increasing in previous years, but currently only about 10% of all engineers are women. And within aerospace engineering, only 8% of employees are female. So from a legislative point of view, as a council member, what do you think is going on at the city level to encourage women to go into the workforce? And a follow-up question to that, how do you think that the safety of women in the workforce is being improved at the current moment?
So it's very interesting that you said that. For me, I had a meeting today to discuss a technical event in my district, which is Tech Leimert is going to do a big event in September where it will be encouraging people to come and look at different kinds of technology, talk about workforce development, encourage young people, and encourage young people to go into different parts of technology, whether it's in the music industry or if it's in film or if it's in aerospace is not one of the industries that we discussed, but we did discuss access to that kind of information, which doesn't always happen in our community. So I'll be working outside of legislation in my community to bring access. Because once you have access, you get interest. And once you have interest, then you'll get education. And that's what we need to have is opportunities for people to become more interested. I'm excited to hear about you in aerospace. Once I had an opportunity to tour SpaceX, and the CEO was a woman. And I was really excited to know that. Even though everybody, Elon Musk, the CEO was a woman. And there are women in that space. So some of the ceilings are busted. I think you'll be able to walk right in. I'm not worried about you. We do have to have other folks have that kind of access so that they'll have opportunities. And I would be happy to work with you in figuring out ways to bring access to young folks, especially in education, so that their interest is sparked and that we can find opportunities.
Yeah, I think a lot of times young people just don't know what they don't know, and through opportunities like what you're creating in the Leimert Park area for that career exposure, maybe not aerospace, but so many STEM jobs in the entertainment field.
Right.
You mentioned music. My neighbor is a music sound engineer. And 1 in 7 jobs here in Los Angeles are in the entertainment industry.
That's right.
And so many of them are STEM related. So, I think we need more of what you're doing so that young people have that exposure and can start to connect the dots. Like, oh, okay, this is a STEM industry type of job.
Transferable skill.
And these are jobs that are here in Los Angeles, and this is a high growth industry. So that is amazing. Lalitha, I'm curious about how you became interested in aerospace.
Yeah, of course. I think aerospace or space in general has always been a passion of mine. I think it started around third grade when my class actually took a field trip to the John Drescher Planetarium. It's at the California State University Northridge, which is pretty close by here in LA. And I remember just being so inspired by that one field trip. I even have a diary entry from it back then, which is really cool. But I remember it because in LA, there's so much light pollution, you never see the stars. And in the planetarium, I saw like stars for the first time. And it was just it was a very defining moment for me, at least. And since then, I've delved into passions in building and creation, and I kind of just put two and two together, saying, okay, well, I like space and I like building things. There you go, and that's how that formed.
That's fantastic. So more field trips,
More field trips.
more career-themed events where young people can come out and learn and be inspired, like Lalitha, and will be a future aerospace engineer. So I know that this conversation could go on and on. We've got just such great minds and very curious and lots of questions, but we are out of time. So I want to thank our youth council members for being here today. Charlie, Sasha, Lalitha, and Monica, thank you for sharing and being in this space with myself and the councilwoman. And councilwoman, we want to thank you for helping us to elevate and highlight a homegrown success story such as yourself. Ooh. And your contributions to your place in women's history here in Los Angeles. So thank you again for being here today. We're quite honored.
Thank you, Lisa, as the GM. That's a big deal too.
Thank you.
Yeah, Women's History Month, there's a leadership role. Yeah, so thank you too. And thank each and every one of you for your time, your energy, and your best thoughts and your best questions. That's really important moving forward. Make sure you're the voice in the room. And remember what Shirley Chisholm says, if they don't have a seat for you, bring a folding chair.
There you go. Thank you so much. I'm Lisa Salazar, and I want to thank you for joining us for another episode of Protest and Promise.